I gave them so much more value than I ever charged them for. It wasn't just, like doing my job, which was recording them and producing them. It was actually adding value to them in terms of like the producer, like teaching them how to become successful in music and how to build a brand that's going to be successful and that's going to resonate, how to get signed, how to get investment capital, how to, teaching them actual business stuff. So I found ways to add value that weren't normal for what somebody in my shoes would have done. Okay, so my story. I'm a music producer. That's where I come from. I'm 39 years old, so I've been in the game and always been an entrepreneur for a long time. I started off a long time ago with a passion for music, and I just wanted to record bands, and I was playing in a band and stuff like that. And, where things really kind of took off for me is I come from nothing, right? Like I come from a cornfields in Wisconsin, and like, anybody who works in music will tell you that literally nothing comes out of Wisconsin. I mean, it's like, LA, Nashville, New York, that's like all the real heavy hitting stuff is, all like the big bands and all the investment capital and, everything that essentially matters in the industry. So, I'm a self-taught guy from the middle of nowhere, and I came up in one of the hardest industries, in my opinion, to make it in, because music, you got to think about it like this. Music was like going like this for decades, right? Budgets were going up, the records, like the late 2000s, you could go do a record. You'd pay like $500,000, to bring your band, like say Korn or whatever. Now I'm showing my age, in the studio, and, as a producer, you just crush it. Well, what happens is, MP3s came in. So the whole thing just, absolutely tanked through the floor. So, a budget literally is 1/20th the size it was 20 years ago. There's all this file sharing, demonetization of music and stuff like that. So, the sky is literally fallen out. Plus we've had like the home recording revolution, where basically like anybody can learn how to record for a couple $1,000s, where you used to have to invest, a couple $100,000 in equipment to build a recording studio and stuff like that. So I kind of came up during that transition, and, like I said, I'm 100% self-taught. So it was a really, 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 really difficult, because like I said, the sky is literally falling, and everybody that was established and doing really good, there was just a massive technological shakeup. And it allowed people like me, who were sitting in the middle of nowhere with a little setup in a basement, to basically outwork everybody and hustle. And as the new economy here has kind of come in, I got really, really, really into digital stuff. So I produced bands, and I did a bunch of like really famous metal bands. I have a #1 song in Japan, a top 10 record in Japan, blah, 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 blah. That stuff's not that important. But the point is I went from being a dude in a basement in a place in the middle of nowhere to like a really, really, really successful producer. And at that point, I got a couple of things we can talk about, like success and, all that stuff. But at that point, I had some friends, and I started networking, and my friend Joey is the most successful metal producer in the world at this time, for like 10 years. He was a guy that did like all the emo, screamo stuff. I don't know if anybody listens to any of that stuff. Asking Alexandria, Attack, stuff like Bring Me the Horizon, bands that are like, in the last 10 years and 15 years in heavy music were just like, that was it. They were like the pinnacle. So, I met Joey through, and I guess this is a good lesson, basically, you never know who you're going to meet, and when you're networking, it's really, really important to always just kind of keep the door open and just keep an open mind, because honestly, I've had people where I've literally written them off, where I'm like, this is never going to turn into anything. And then all of a sudden, like 10 years later, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I met that person because this and this and this happened. So this is like one of those scenarios, right? I came in and, I never worked with anybody before. I was self-taught. I had a band where, the band came in and they were just trash. They were absolute crap. And I'm like, they're not going to go anywhere. They literally broke up by the end of the week. I finished the 2 songs with them. I sent them off, never thought about it, but I did something for them. I gave them so much more value than I ever charged them for. It wasn't just, like doing my job, which was recording them and producing them. It was actually adding value to them in terms of like the producer, like teaching them how to become successful in music and how to build a brand that's going to be successful and that's going to resonate, how to get signed, how to get investment capital, how to, teaching them actual business stuff. So I found ways to add value that weren't normal for what somebody in my shoes would have done. And, the band, like I said, broke up in a week, but they were at high school and they kind of showed their friends this record that I'd done with them. They were like, holy shit, this is awesome. Can I curse on this? Is that all right?
Oh yeah, bro.
I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
all right. I'm like,
if you want, I can beat you.
Hard. All right, you can beat me. Cool. So, okay. So, anyways, we kept going, and you know, like they wanted me to go, and this other kid's band came in. I went to go to Indiana to work with this new up and coming producer guy, my best friend Joey, and you know, this is right as his career was taking off. And when I met him, we were like brothers from another mother, you know. And it was like, if I had not have met this group of kids that broke up and didn't do anything and given them all this extra value far in excess of what I was charging them for, I would have never really did anything. So I met this dude, and you know, we just kind of like became best buddies, because same story. He's like a kid in, you know, trailer park in Indiana, working his ass off. And, you know, ironically, 3 years later, he's the biggest producer in the entire world in that genre of music. So, you know, fast forward, as we get going, you know, his career takes off. I'm grinding it out. We're working hard. And he comes back and he's like, hey, dude, I sold some of my samples that I made on my website, and I made like, you know, $20,000. And I was like, no shit. Cause he had this big internet audience, cause he was always giving value to his people and teaching. And so what happened, he's like, hey, let's make a product. I'm like, okay. So I came up with like this guitar product thing, and I, you know, it basically called me, and then like 3 days later, I just created it. And then we sold it. We made like $40,000 in like a couple of weeks. And we're like, holy shit, like this is amazing. Like, why are we producing records for $300 or $400 a day when we could be doing stuff like this? So, you know, the light bulb kind of went on. And so we started doing things like we started a podcast, and, you know, it did good. You know, we got like our first 1,000 fans. We teamed up with another guy who had some experience in the realm, but we were just sitting there, like the business was growing, and it was kind of just like stuck at a certain spot. And it was at that point in time that I realized, you know, I've got like a roadmap for success that I use, and that it's one of those things that sounds stupid and like obvious, like, yeah, bro, I know that, you know, blah, 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 blah. But if you really think about it, you really live it, it will actually yield a lot of results. And that's like a 4-pillar formula. The first one is just knowledge, then experience, then network, and then wealth. And the reason that it's complicated is everybody fucks this up, because they're like network. I don't have the connections. I don't know the right people. I don't have the money. I don't the blah, blah, blah. You know, everybody's focusing on the network thing, and no one ever gets to the damn skills, right? Like, you know, I'll quote Dan Locke, you know, high income skills, right? High return investments, scalable business, high return investments. That's his triangle of wealth thing, you know, the YouTube dude. You know, so it's a similar kind of concept, but like for me, it was all about like getting knowledge and becoming fucking awesome at something, just undeniably one of the best in the world, and working towards being that good at what you do. And then once you have that, you're out getting experience, you know what I mean? Then you can go and you can network with people, because you actually have some value to offer to people. You know, it's like you just show up and you're like, yeah, help me out, blah, blah. It's like, well, what are you going to do for me? You know, anybody who's actually done something, you know, you can't just walk up to them and say like, yeah, help me. like, why should I care? You know, that's what you're going to get. So, and then once you've got that dialed in and you start networking and taking your knowledge and experience, you have something to offer, then you can start building businesses and et cetera, and achieving your goals and building some real wealth and stuff like that, because you actually have something to give to the world. So anyways, going back so we started this podcast. We were like looking at our, you know, what we were doing, asking our community. And then we saw like our buddy had this mixing school he made. And we're like, this guy doesn't even have any fucking credits. Like, he's never worked on a real band in his life. He hasn't done shit. Like, no, you know, but this guy's making $27,000 a month teaching people. Like, we can do this way better because we've actually done something. We have great stories. So we basically pivoted and gave the people what they wanted, which was, you know, teaching them, you know, how to mixing is kind of like the guy who sits at the board with all the knobs, the space shuttle looking thing, and like, you know, makes stuff sound good. Because when I say mixing, people are like, oh, like a DJ? Like, no. That's kind of like telling a fighter pilot that, oh yeah, man, I fly a little, you know, a hobby one seat. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, so it's the same kind of thing, you know, like people in audio are really pretentious about their jobs, you know? So long story short is we started this thing, and then we just pivoted one month, and all of a sudden we like tripled our subscriber rate in like 2 weeks. And we were like, holy shit, because we found the right product market fit. At that point, we realized that like, we better figure this out. So all the things I've been putting off my whole life, like learning psychology, learning sales, learning management, learning, you know, more about accounting, finance, corporate finance, you know, how to close, things like that. These were skills that we had to sit down, and I literally started treating like the next 4 or 5 years of my life, because this was like back in 2014 that we started doing this stuff. I kind of had to treat it like I was going through like a crash course MBA program, only there's real money on the table, because your business is literally like, we 10X that year, then we 10X the year after that. And we're like, holy shit, now we're making 7 figures, you know? And it was like, all right, well, now we got to hire all these people. We got to, you know, like, we're going to do a webinar. Like, I don't know how to do a webinar. Like, I've never sold on a webinar. Let's learn how to do a webinar. So we had to take all this marketing education. We had to learn all of these skills. And it's been it's been a fucking blitz, but I've kind of realized that, like I said, the most important thing you can do for yourself is to learn skills that have value and become really, really fucking awesome at them. Because when you do, that's when you start, you have something to offer to the world. You start networking, and that's when you start stacking up them racks, and you can start flexing Lambos and stupid shit like that on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get the skills and you got to put in the work to do it. And you got to learn the stuff that you've been putting off that you don't want to learn necessarily, if that makes sense, because, no one wants to sit down. They're like, accounting. Yeah. Who's pumped up to learn that? It's really boring. It sucks. It's annoying. It's like, it's not something that's cool. But at the same time, if you don't know how to read a balance sheet and a P&L, and you don't know how to do capital budgeting, it's like, you're never going to run an organization with, right. Yeah. So the point is that it's like
accounting, basically.
But yeah, you gotta learn the skills. So I remember we decided to sell our first like actual course instead of like a subscription. We had like our OTO, or one-time offer. And my buddy comes to me because he was taking all the super expensive ClickFunnels mastermind stuff. He's paying like $30,000 a year to do all this stuff, and he's like just super, super, super engaged in it. My business partner, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna focus on the sales stuff. So I'm taking all like Jordan Belfort's courses. And I'm looking at some of like the closing stuff that's out there, and, learning those types of skills. And he's like, all right, man, we're going to do a webinar. I'm like, how the fuck do you do a webinar? And we were like, really, it was stressful because, again, we put the course out. We're like, all right, we got 2 weeks to figure this out, build a webinar and sell this damn thing. So we just spent the last 6 months making this. So dude, we did a webinar, and, all I did is sit down and study like closing and sales tactics and things like that. And like intonation manipulation and copywriting and psychology. And we went on, and I closed like 23% of the people that day. And we made like $30,000 that were on that webinar in like an hour. And I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. We should do this again. So, we did more and more webinars, and we ended up making a couple $100,000 on a course called Speed Mixing, which is like how to, basically do what I do as a music producer really, really fast and efficiently. And man, like everything just kind of started scaling from there. I started diversifying out. Like, I also have a software company, and I have I do some like e-com drop shipping stuff, but like a totally different business in like the I want to say like the trial continuity space, which is like a totally different. We use a lot of affiliates and affiliate networks and things like that, and it's like a whole different business. So I've done a few $1 million over there. I was selling CBD, and now I'm doing some other stuff. So we do, we've been all over the place in terms of like my team and myself, and like just the things that we're doing, the types of businesses that we are. But like I said, I think the most important thing is really just focusing on mastery of skills and just doing something awesome and being incredible at it. And I mean, geez, okay, so hold on. I'm thinking, because I'm in a free form rant here, unprepared. I think this is a good power tip for you. Okay, so if you want to get good at something, so you guys are closers, right? You have a closer academy.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you're shaking your head. So you got a closer academy. So you guys are learning how to close and, ask good questions and psychologies and like psychometric profiling and stuff like that. So one thing that I've always had like a bit of a formula for getting good at a skill. And this is something that I learned playing video games back in 1997. There was a game called Quake 1. Let's see if anybody is old enough to remember that. All right. Good game. All right. That's amazing. All right. So now it would be like Call of Duty, or I don't even know what's like the newest game, Counter-Strike. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I don't have,
we're back from
I don't have time for video games.
The Quake and Doom era.
That was, man, that was the shit. So I started playing Quake like when I was like a freshman in college. And by then there was already Quake 2 out and about Quake 3. And I remember going to this server. Okay. And this was really an eye-opening moment for me, because I was like working really, really hard at getting good at it. I don't know. I was like fanatically obsessed. I just played video games. I wasn't chasing girls or trying to get grades. I was just playing video games during college that year. And, I wanted to get really awesome at it, but I was kind of a noob. I'd only been playing for like a couple of months, and you know how it is when you got 10 hours a day to play video games and nothing to do other than go to a couple classes and go get drunk. Right. So, man, like, I remember going into this server where like the best clan team was playing, and like, they would just come in and like, you'd be playing, having fun. And like that, one of those dudes would show up and just wreck everybody in the server. Like literally all you'd see is like, dudes rockets, like, and like, you spawn, all of a sudden you're dead. You spawn again, you're dead. Like you turn around, you shoot your shotgun, you're dead. You spawn, you walk 2 steps, boom, you're fucking dead again. And you're like, what the fuck? This is bullshit. Like I can't even play. I just die. Every time I spawn, I'm killed. This is like, but it's the whole server. And like, how do these guys clean up so hard? So this is kind of where I started thinking about it. And, you know, everybody comes in and they're talking shit. They're like, man, you guys, this is bullshit. You guys are bots. Fuck you. You know, everybody's just talking shit. And I'm like, man, I'm going to do a different approach because I want to get that good. So I'm never going to get that good if I don't sit down and think about and like reverse engineer it. So everybody else clears out of the server because no one wants to play against the guy who's 20 times better than all of them and making them look stupid and takes the fun out of it. And I'm in there and I just keep going hard at it. And I just keep getting the floor mopped. And I, you know, instead of talking shit like everybody else is doing, I'm like, teach me. They're like, whatever, dude, fuck off. Teach me, whatever, fuck off. Teach me, whatever. And I just kept going and we kept playing. And, you know, a couple of days later, I'd see like the same 2 or 3 guys in, do the same thing. A couple of days later, same thing. Well, after like a month, they're like, hey, dude, you're actually starting to get pretty decent at this. It's good to see that you're working hard, you know? And like, we started chattering, you know, they like loosened up. I wasn't just some noob they were pounding the crap out of every day. It was like, there was like, all right, man, you know, you got some potential. So I kept working and I kept asking questions and I was nice and polite and respectful of their time. And I realized that a lot of success has to do with the expectation you set for yourself. Okay. So if you're just trying to be good, you know, you're only ever going to be good. But if you're like, who's the best in the world? And I'm like, this is the guy in this server. Like, no one can touch this guy. It's untouchable. I'm like, I'm going to beat that guy. And I'm going to wake up every day until I defeat that guy. And whether or not I have the talent or the luck or the genetics or whatever, I don't know if I'm that good, but I'm going to treat it like it's a, you know, blood sport to the death. My life matters on it. If I show up every day and try to beat the person who is the absolute fucking pinnacle at that, if I get this far up, am I going to be disappointed? No. If I get this far, no, because I'm still past everybody else down here. And that was like one of the things where I had that mentality and I adopted it. And I got added into that clan after 6 months of playing, and no other player on that server had ever done that. And the main dude took me under his wing as his replacement protege because I had that attitude where I was just always super like, I wasn't kissing ass, but I was just like, teach me. And I was always, you know, I was always like, whatever he told me to go do for the next week, like I would just train it like it was like a fanatic religion discipline kind of thing. So, and man, I got better than everybody else in that server in like 2 months of training under this dude. And then I was in that clan, and then I was one of those guys that would mop the floor with everybody. So I learned then when I was like 19 years old, that if you have that type of mentality, right, where you go in and say, all right, who's the absolute fucking best at this? Like, I'm going to beat that person. And whether or not you can beat them, that's, you know, there's some luck, there's some genetics, there's, you know, some people are smarter at math and some people are better at running, and some people, you know, everybody's got their own predisposition talents. But the point is that, you know, by setting your expectations so ridiculously high and then sitting down and reverse engineering that and be like, all right, I'm going to become incredible at that, you're going to get pretty damn good at it with some time. Like I said, if you take the time to get the knowledge and then the experience, and then when you get to that level, well, like I said, that's when you start making money and you start doing really amazing things. So I've always kind of had that mentality as I've been growing in my businesses and just the different things that I've been doing, where it's like, I want to be the best in the world at what I do. So as soon as I started doing webinars and stuff like that, I'm like, all right, I got to be the best damn salesperson. And who are like the best salespeople I can think of? You know, I'm looking at like, you know, guys like Cardone and, you know, Jordan Belfort and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to study these guys. I'm going to read everything they've ever fucking written. I'm going to go watch the movie. I'm going to watch any video that's ever been on YouTube. And I'm going to try to learn this. I'm going to read all the scripts. I'm going to study all this. Okay. He's talking about intonation in psychology and using intonation to be more persuasive in your closing. Okay. Let's go study psychometric profiling. Right. So when you go with that kind of like furious desire to be great at something, you're going to get pretty good at it. And when you get pretty good at it, that's when you get dangerous, you know, and you start like making money. And, you know, once you start making money, you can do a lot of cool things like invest it and then it makes money for you, you know? So it's a good self-perpetuating thing. So I don't know. That's my story. And those are some things. There's lots of other things we can talk about. Anything of that trigger any, you tell me, what do you want to hear about?
I love that, dude. I love that. I guess what we usually do is do a little Q&A, let these guys ask you some questions about success and stuff like that. So if you're open to that, that's what I'd like to do.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go. I'm going to call on the first person. Oh, there's people with their hands up. All right, Chantel, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to know, what was your biggest roadblock and how did you get past it? Or how do you brainstorm ideas to get past obstacles, I guess is what I'm trying at.
Great question. So my biggest roadblock I actually figured out was fear. And when I say fear, it's fear of uncertainty. I think Again, this is one of those things that sounds generic, but this is not generic, because for me, this is a personal struggle that's took 20 years of my life to figure out. So when I was a kid, I was like really bullied, and I was really shy, and I was like the skinny kid who was picked on, who had no charisma. All of this is trained. This is practice. This is like, now it's natural. But the point is, like, I had to go read 10 books on how to talk to a human being to understand something like body language. I had to go and read books on sales to understand intonation. Like, it didn't click with me naturally. I didn't have any like emotional intelligence or IQ. So the biggest thing for me, because I came from a background where I didn't do well with people, was to get out of the anxiety and the comfort zone and the self-limiting beliefs and the fear. So for example, like, I'm afraid of heights. So how did I break the fear of heights? I literally went to Russia on a vacation, and I walked across the world's longest bridge, shaking the entire time. It was the highest, longest suspension bridge in the world. And like, I mean, I have like a physical reaction to it. And I was just trembling, which is funny because my kids are running across this thing. They're like, come on, Dad. I'm like, I'm all right. And they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, just go. I'm just having a panic attack. It's not that big of a deal. So I really, really, really struggled with a lot of fear. For example, like the fear of risk. When I started out my recording studio, right? For me, I had to close bands, right? So I'd go to a show and I had to walk up to people and I'd be like, hey, come record with me. And it's like, that was really terrifying because, again, I was at the point in my life where I didn't like talking to people. It was really, really difficult. And it created a lot of anxiety because it wasn't natural. And I was still trying to learn those skills and go from a socially awkward person to a person with charisma. And I had to make the conscious decision to take something that I was naturally bad at and force myself to get good at it. And that was a reality check, because before then it was an external locus of control. For me, it was always like, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm picked on, I'm a victim. I struggle with this and that, my life is difficult. And then one day I realized, like, why am I sitting around being depressed, self-loathing? Like I changed my mentality and I said, okay, what if it's not everybody else? What if it's me? I can't change how other people treat me, but I can change how I do it myself. So for me, when I was young, the first thing I did is I broke my comfort zone extreme. I went to a house party, which sounds ridiculous, but it's like I said, all I did was play video games my first semester. My second semester, I spent partying, because the most anxiety producing situation I could come up with for me at the time and the age was walking in and talking to a bunch of random strangers I'd never met before. It just really, really made me like shaking nervous, because I'm used to people like, oh, let's go beat up the nerd. That was like, that was my young childhood. So I had to get over that. And the way to get over that was to just have just have the strength to be like, all right, I'm going to change this. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to come in like a fucking wrecking ball, and I'm taking this. Like, I'm not going to do it. And, I'm not going to deal with it anymore. So I had to get over the fear of uncertainty in a lot of things in my life. I was very, very risk adverse. So like this year I've been doing a lot of investing. And I've been doing a lot of crypto investing, and like all of my advisors, they have a heart attack every time I go in there, because they're like, it's so risky. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't even faze me. I'm flipping $100K a month on my Amex and ad spend, dude. Like so I've gotten to that point in risk, after I've made millions and millions of dollars, that I've realized that like the bolder I get in my life, the more that I overcome the fear, the more that I'm like, just believe in myself, even when everybody else in the world is telling me I'm nuts, the luckier I get. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's like the stars really do come together. Like when you have bold action, it's like when I start, like, I just made an insane amount of money on Dogecoin. I've been holding it for like 9 months, and everybody was making fun of me on my Instagram. And I'm like, dude, nah. I'm like, I understand social currency. I know this is going to be good, and here's why. And they're like, dude, you're nuts. And I just took $5,000 and turned it into 90. And it's like, there's a lot of risk associated with doing that. It's almost gambling, but most people would not go for that kind of thing. It's too scary for them. It's too like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to go risk some money. It's like, you got to be able to build yourself to that point. So for me, it was all about getting over my own fear of just risk and uncertainty. And just like closing, I think 99% of people's ability to like what's holds most people back from success is that they're afraid of uncertainty. They're afraid to be judged. They're afraid to put something out there on the internet and have the whole, 500 come after them in a YouTube comment section, just ripping the shit out of whatever you just spent your like 6 months of your life doing. Like, you've got to be brave and you've got to be fearless. And it's a very, very narrow thing at the top. So I really learned that you just got to get over your fear, and you have to, in order to do that, you have to put yourself progressively in more and more uncomfortable situations. And it's not fun. It sucks, actually. But after a while, what you're most afraid of, when you get through it, like when I went to that house party, after that I was done, I was like, that was it. that gave me so much anxiety. That was the dumbest thing ever. That was fun. I'm going to go do that again next weekend. So, you know, you just got to like get over your fear, like, you know, investing. I was like, oh, you know, I just want to try to get like a safe 10% return. Now I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to throw 10 grand at this shit because, you know, if it hits, great. If not, I'll find a way to make another 10 grand. And that kind of mentality sometimes really, really pays off, and sometimes you lose. But again, like I said, it was all about overcoming the fear and just forcing it, like absolute fanatic passion to success and overcoming it.
Love that. Love that. Love that.
Thank you.
Shelly, I know you had your hand up. Do you have a question? It's not up anymore though.
Yes, I do have a question.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
Dude, I love that. I have an insane amount of energy. You could ask any of these guys and like your energy is up there. So I like it. We like it. We like it.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it, man. I love seeing people with the energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm just manic is what it is, but all the time. Cool though. It's how I do what I do, man. It works. All right, Shelly, what's up?
It's important for sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. My question is like, if you seem like you learned from your past, like you say you used to be bullied and stuff like that, and you weren't that outgoing, but like to yourself, you kind of probably were a little outgoing when you were by yourself, like on your own, right?
No, I'm an introvert, believe it or not, which is shocking for anybody who knows me publicly. But I like keeping to myself and I like keeping quiet. My natural state is just kind of to chill and to sit back and just be relaxed and calm down. But ever since I've been able to make a living doing what I love every day, I find that I'm pretty hype all the time because it's just exciting. Because it's like, for me, again, I train music producers and teach the next generation of audio professionals. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, because it's like me looking at myself in the mirror when I'm a kid. I remember being a person and being self-taught and being so frustrated, not knowing how to become successful. So I like being able to kind of give back to that community and stuff like that. So for me, it just gives me so much energy because I'm doing what I love every single day. And, you know, it's hard. I mean, God, businesses, it's this, you know, I mean, but at the same time, I've always been an introvert and I still am. I'm just amped because I'm just passionate, excited.
Yeah, I get that. And that's, excuse me. I get that. And like you were saying, like you're an introvert, but I kind of get the outgoing introvert. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you're outgoing, but an introvert at the same time. Like, how do you kind of balance that? You know, like right now you're hyped because you're doing exactly what you love. That's kind of me. When I'm really passionate about something, I get really super excited. But then like at the same time, I'm super chill too. Like, how do you balance that?
I got a trick for you. It's a psychological trick called anchoring. And okay, so I used to play in a band, and when we would go on stage, I can't explain it. If you've never been on stage in front of a lot of people, it's a very nerve-wracking kind of experience. Like, you're on pure adrenaline. There's a few experiences I've ever had. Like, if you're in front of like 10,000 people on stage, it is like, it's an adrenaline rush that's almost hard to explain. And there's a few things like it. And to play in peak performance when you're that like, oh my God, like don't screw up, like don't break a guitar string or like, you know, fall off the stage or like forget how the song goes because you're just too nervous. Like, how do you get that type of amp? Or like when I'm going to go on and do public speaking, and maybe like, you know, we have an event, a summit, right? And it's like a 4-day thing, and I got to MC it, but I also have to be the keynote lead thing. So, I mean, and then I got to hang out with everybody because it's my event. So it's like, I'm like sleeping power naps in between the, you know, the speakers, because it's the only time I can sleep, because I have to keep like 110% on the whole time. So my trick to get through that is like, maybe I come in and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't sleep last night because I got 3 kids, you know, and 4 businesses, and like, it's insanity. So it's just like, I'm exhausted. I'm like, okay, I got to get on this stream. So how do you get over it? The answer is anchoring. Anytime you have like success or anything awesome in your life where you're hyped and you have that moment, find some sort of repeatable physical action that you can do that channels that state. So for example, when I did that webinar and I made like 30 grand in an hour, I was like, yeah, you know. So I do like a certain thing where I close my fist and I kind of like, I take a deep breath, I dilate my eyes and I start jumping around like I'm a boxer, like I'm going to go and fight somebody, you know. And I have like a certain word phrase I say in my head, and then I kind of put my arm up in the air like this, like I'm going to go on stage, because it's what I used to do when I was in a band. And then I just I'm there, I'm in the zone. So the more times you reinforce that psychologically, so every time you have something awesome happen where you want to jump up and down and scream and you're excited, like set some sort of anchor and keep repeating it. Because then when you're like this and you haven't, maybe you haven't eaten in 5 hours, your blood sugar's low, you've been up all night, like I said, the kids didn't sleep and they're sick, and then all of a sudden it's like 7 a.m. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get pumped up. I gotta go kill this stage. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And then it's just like I hit my anchor, and then it's like magic, and it's like the whole world and you just turn on. So if you got to train it.
Do you usually care when people are around you when you anchor it, or it doesn't really matter?
No, doesn't matter. You do you. I mean, look, you got to look at it like this. If people are making fun of you and giving you a hard time for acting weird and like eccentric, you're probably hanging around the wrong people. You got to find people that are like, I don't know. I mean, again, that's that fear thing. Like you got to ditch the fear of judgment. Somebody's going to tell you how you should live or how, what you should do and what's right for you. You can't let that external influence get into your head, or it's going to so if you need to set an anchor and you need to jump up and scream, do jump up and scream. You know what I mean? And just be you, let it all out, because when you need that energy, you'll be able to tap it and it'll come to you and you'll be able to perform.
Thank you so much.
Love that. I have the same thing. I call it showtime. Turn it on.
Yeah.
Showtime. Yeah. I have a question for you. They all always want to know this. What are your top 3 favorite books that have had the most impact on you as an entrepreneur?
Oh boy. That's a tough one. Okay. So I got 3 books that really, really, really changed my outlook. I think the first book, the OG, this is the book that changed my life. And there's a bit of a story that goes with this. It was the Retire Rich, Retire Young by Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. And I was like 20, and my dad's like, yeah, you should read this book. And this is before I was kind of making that transition into being an extrovert. And at that point, I really wanted to embrace positive everything. So I had to change my mind from like a manic depressive, negative, like, oh, my life sucks kind of person to Retire Rich, Retire Young by Kiyosaki. So, and you can read any of his books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's all the same. So the point is like at that point, I was trying to put like a lot of positive energy into my life and a lot of like really, really, really just like, I didn't have friends that were like go-getters that wanted to go crush stuff. I'm like, I want to do great things with my life. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go change the world in the way that it makes sense for me and whatever I can have my impact. So that was the first book that I read it. And I was like at the airport with my girlfriend that time. And we were going to like some place, and I was with my parents. We were going on vacation. And like, we were in a hurry to catch the plane. And I had picked up that book, and my dad kept mentioning it. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, maybe I should read this. And I put it down because I was cheaping out. I was like, oh, it's like $12. Well, I only have like $20 because I'm a broke college kid. And I don't know what happened. Like I turned around, I put it on the thing. My girlfriend's like, we got to go, and she's kind of getting mad at me. So I started walking, and then all of a sudden I stopped, and I had like an anxiety attack. I've never experienced this in my life. It was the weirdest thing. It was like, I stopped, and I was like, she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I got to get that book. And I turned around and I bought that book. And instead of talking to her on the plane, I read the whole damn book cover to cover because I had 4 hours. And that book totally changed my mentality in terms of money and the fact that like, I didn't have to work for a living. I could like, start a business and get people to work for me or take my money and invest it. Like I never had considered it because I was come from an employee. My parents are kind of like, they came from nothing. They worked hard, they did well, but they were stuck in that type of mentality. Like I'm sure a lot of guys have. So that book was really transformational for me because it got me out of the mentality that I had to work for money or to tie work to money, and that I could tie money to other things like, leverage or, et cetera, skill, whatever. Okay. So that was the first book. The second book that really like changed my mentality was like Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. And I love this book. And this isn't the best, like, it's not necessarily like a business book, but this is like one of those things that I feel like they should teach in school because it's just so poorly done in school. And like you take econ in school and it's like a bunch of dumb formulas. It's like GDP equals like you're not teaching anybody anything. It's bullshit. But what I love about that book, and I've read 23 books in economics, is the way Sowell's a genius, but he's like one of these guys that when he speaks to you, he talks to you on a level where you don't have to get through a bunch of like word scrap. Like he's not trying to impress you with how smart he is. He's already like a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute, blah, 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 super ultra nerdy professor, accolade, all these, whatever. So he's not like, look at me, I'm the smartest person in the world. He talks to you like he writes in a way that, I could give it to my 10-year-old daughter and be like, read this book and she would understand it for the most part, maybe minus some of the terminology and stuff. But I like that book because it teaches you how an economy works. It teaches you how government policy affects an economy. And as a business owner, you want to know, it's like, hey, if we're going to change cap gains tax rates, or if we're going to raise tax or lower tax, or if we're going to put in a rent control, or how is it going to affect or potentially affect your business? How is it going to affect the economy? It teaches you like how to separate intentions from economic reality, because a lot of people have really, really good intentions, but the economic reality of their policies is the opposite of their intention because they didn't study economics and they don't understand it. So it's a good book for an entrepreneur to understand how an economy actually works, because like I said, you know, all the time there's stuff on the news and you're like, okay, well, how does that affect my business? I don't know. And then I read that book and I'm like, oh, so the guy on TV says this, but he's full of shit because he doesn't understand this and this and this. So this would do this and this and this. So I'm going to do this and this in response, because if that law passes, it's going to affect me like this. And I need to make these moves. So that was a good book to learn, just in terms of like, you know, how the world around you affects you as an individual. It's just a good book. So that book really changed my thinking in a lot of ways. Because it was just like, so I was like, it was just so eye-opening. I was just like, holy shit. Like I couldn't believe, just totally opened my mind. It was like, I went way down the rabbit hole. Okay. So the next one is, hold on 1 second. Let me just drink a little bit of water. Give me 2 seconds.
I've noticed a trend. We try and do these masterminds with successful people as often as we can to kind of like show these guys what's up and how people's patterns work and the routines and all that stuff. And I would say 90% of them, Robert Kiyosaki is on that list.
Dude, he's the OG. All right. The third one, and this is the book you probably have all read, is the 4-Hour Weekend. 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Weekend.
Tim Ferriss.
That sounds bad. Weekend. Yeah, Tim Ferriss. And what changed my mentality in that book was not so much, because I was in a weird spot when I read. I've done the audiobook at least 21 times. I used to drive and just listen to it. And the reason I liked that book, it was transformational, was like, I was like, well, I'm producing bands and this is what I love doing. I've always been an entrepreneur, but like, you know, I'm good where I'm at. Like, I don't want to work 4 hours. I love doing this, you know? So I didn't really, for me, it was a weird thing, because like I was into the idea of working less and making more, and, you know, outsourcing and scaling and all this stuff. But the thing that really stuck with me was the concept. And like I said, because I've got 3 kids and is life balance. And this is a hard thing as an entrepreneur, as I'm sure you all know, because it's like you got busy lives. You might have kids, maybe you're going to school for something, maybe you got some student debts to pay off or some bills or some loans. Like everybody's got their own story and their own problems and their own things that they're coming up for. And there's a lot of things that get in the way of success, which is pretty much like everything in life. And it's really, really a pain in the ass. And it's good to remind yourself that all of life is not just fucking making money and trying to get richer and things like that, because it's kind of like a false, I don't know how to explain it. Like my wife is Russian. When I go to Russia, it's like here, if I go walk into a music store anywhere in the world, you know, somebody's going to know who I am. And they're going to be like, oh, dude, blah, 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 because they've seen me on the internet and I'm going to get punished. But like when I'm on a bus in Russia and some big babushka like just smacks me out of the way because she doesn't give a fuck about anything that I've done. She doesn't care about my network. She doesn't care how much money I made last year. And it's really a reality check. So when the idea in that book of like mini retirements and like balancing that kind of stuff really, really resonated with me and lifestyle design, because it was kind of like, how do I balance my life in terms of like, you know, I got kids and I want to be there for my kids. At the same time, I need to go and build an empire because I'm that kind of person. And like, I feel like it's beyond like an innate need. It's like literally ingrained into my psyche. Like, I feel like, I can't even explain it. Like it's like destiny. Like I have to do it. Like the world has just decided, like, I'm one of those people, I got to go conquer everything in my path and destroy it and then go conquer more and conquer more. Like I can never settle. So it's nice for someone like me who's always on, because you know how it is. It's like you're sitting there at home and it's like you get home and it's like business. You're always like, shit, I got an issue I got to take care of. And, you know, your wife's sitting there looking at you like, why aren't you spending time with me? You're like, yeah, hold on 1 second. I just got this thing in this blend. They're like, no. So it helps me like, all right, I'm going to go home. I'm going to turn my phone off and I'm going to be dad and I'm going to spend time with my kids and I'm going to focus on that when I'm at home. And I'm not going to check my customer service email, make sure my team's doing their job, or this issue that's blowing up, or this person that just threatened to sue this person. And I got to go play mitigator between this deal over here that I've been working on for 6 months. Like I can learn how to let go of all that. So every year I take 3 months, which I'm about to do next year. And I go over to like Russia or whatever with them. And we take time off. And, you know, I do a little bit of work when I'm over there, but I've structured my life to be able to work off a phone or a laptop and generate money. So, you know, because right now, I mean, like I'm all about investing and saving for retirement, but you got to think about something. What is the biggest depreciating asset that you have that once you get rid of, other than your time, that you can never gain back, and that's health. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration because doing this entrepreneur thing, it takes a toll on. I mean, like I said, I'm about 40 years old, and I'm still running like a machine. But sometimes people hit me up with new businesses. They're like, "Oh, let's start this," and I'm like, "That's a great idea, but man, maybe I'm just getting old, but like I've already got enough on my plate. I kind of want to just like I'll maybe like invest and advise, but I don't want to go get my hands dirty and work 16 hours a day. I already gave up my 20s and half of my 30s. Like, you know, well, you were having fun. I was sitting there, I was grinding away, you know, like I don't want to do that anymore. I want balance in my life. So the 4-hour work week really helped me with that. It's like the idea of taking mini retirements and just like really separating work from home and trying to have a life and learning how to turn this off and just be present in where you're at, like taking a walk and actually enjoying the nature and breathing the air and, you know, really taking the time to experience it instead of just taking a walk and be like, okay, so if I can close this deal, it's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, so those are 3 books that I think really stuck with me over the years.
I love that. I love that. Have you read the book, The Perfect Day Formula? I think it's by Ryan Holiday. I'm not 100% sure, but he goes a lot.
I've heard of it, but I haven't.
Structuring your time and making sure that you have like your kids and your wife and all that stuff is in there. I agree too. I mean, I'm still grinding those crazy hours, but on the weekend I stop 3 o'clock and then I don't work at all for the rest of the weekend until like Monday, hang out with my daughter, family, all that stuff. It's important.
It's the hardest thing to do too. I mean, a lot of people don't understand. Somebody asked me once, because I get a lot of business questions from like, you know, because I have like music producers are usually entrepreneurs. They start their little studio and they record bands. And the hard part is like, well, I've got a wife and kids and, you know, I can't just go off and do this, but this is what's in my heart. This is what I want to do. I'm like, well, why not? And I'm like, look, dude, I own 4 companies and I got 3 kids and I make it work somehow. Like I'm going to the grocery store, like I'm listening to music on headphones, learning something, not music, but like, you know, I'm taking courses and I'm saturating and like, you know, doing deals in the car. Like I'm optimizing every part of my day, but there's a point you just got to turn it off and you got to focus. And it's really, really hard to do. So you can absolutely do it. You can be successful. Yes. You know, like my business partners are all single, you know, and it's a lot easier for them to accumulate money because they don't have kids. You know, they don't know what a 36 grand a year daycare bill is like, which is crippling. When you're just getting started and you're trying to transitioning, it's really, really, really difficult financially. So, you know, instead they're like, oh man, I don't know what yacht I'm going to go on. I'm like, geez, your life must be so difficult. Like go have a kid and grow up, you know, like, so it's a hard thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do. And you have to give your home life as much energy as your business life, which is usually difficult because I think entrepreneurs are wired different. It's not that home comes number 2, but it's kind of like, it kind of does, if that makes sense. It's not like intentional either. It's not like anything against them. It's not like you don't love them and care about them, but it's kind of like once I had kids, my desire to go and get money like 20x. When I was younger, I was like, yeah, man, I'll go play in a band and tour and sleep on a Walmart concrete and out of a bus and eat a ham sandwich. I'm down. I just want to go on tour and have fun. Now I'm like, all right, man, I got 3 kids to feed. So if we ain't making money, I'm not wasting my time. You know, it changes your mentality because, you know, you want to have more control over your time. And it's always really a challenge.
Yeah. It's just not you anymore. I got a question for you that I'm sure everyone would want to know. So you've been through a journey now for a while, you know, you're very successful at this point. You've accomplished a ton of things. What do you do? Because there's always, like you said, running a business, being an entrepreneur, it's a graph, right? It's like a heartbeat, basically.
Yes.
What do you do in the times where shit just gets fucking rough? You're burnt out, you're grinding, maybe things aren't going your way. You're at that point where you just want to quit or you're thinking about it, you're depressed. Like, what are the thing that you did or do in those situations? Because I'm sure you've had them that kind of like picked you back up, kept you going, and really just got you back on track and was like, okay, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to fucking get back on the horse and go.
Well, I'll tell you, I love that question because it's one of the best questions. And this is what separates a real entrepreneur from the wannabes. The answer is there's no other option. You keep fucking going. I mean, I'll tell you a story. Okay. You want to talk about risk and risk tolerance. 2018, I had a weird thing with my business where they changed some credit card processing rule in Europe where all my stuff is subscription. So the way that the manual form entry was done, because we were using ClickFunnels, the way it re-enters it on the subscription, like the billing descriptor or something, basically in Europe, like all the banks turn that off and says, we're not going to process that payment because it's susceptible for fraud or some shit like that. I don't know. And all of a sudden one day I'm sitting there in a beach and I'm hanging out in Russia And my business partner calls me from, Indiana. And he's like, dude, we're missing 40 grand in our account. I'm like, what? The fuck? So, we started panicking. It took us 4 months to figure out, and I lost $100,000. And I had a business that was paying me like $25K a month. And all of a sudden, like my salary went down from like $25,000 a month to like $3,000 to zero. And I'm sitting there on vacation spending like money. And I'm like, shit. Oh my God. Cause I took off all my other stuff and I had, some other businesses and stuff, but like that was like the bread and butter business back then. And holy shit. So that was like really rough. And then I was in a really bad place. And cause I had some medical stuff, like I had to have a gallbladder removed and that same, when I was over there. And, I had a bunch of medical bills and stuff like that. And I was like, shit, I just got fucking clobbered financially. Like I went from being like rich as fuck to having like $2,000 because all my stuff is locked up in assets. Like I invest most of my money. I'd rather be asset rich and cash broke. You know what I mean? Like, I drive a shitty car. I live in a modest house, stuff like that. I live cheap, but I have a couple of toys. Like I collect watches and stuff like that. But I mean, other than like, the Patek and, a couple of Rolexes and stuff like that, like I don't need anything else. So man, I was over there and I was like, oh my God, like it's such a mind fuck to go from killing it. You can literally afford anything you want within reason, like, do I need a Lambo? No, I don't give a shit about cars. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't care. Like within reason, you can just go to the store and buy whatever the hell you want, as much of it as you want, whatever you want. Like, let's go buy, 6 bags of blueberries at Costco because I want to eat fucking blueberries until my face turns purple. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good thing to do, all organic. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, let's go buy them. They're not even on sale. It doesn't matter. It's like, that's what we want to eat. We're hungry. So, you know what I mean? Like it's a good, to go from that mindset to go from like having abundance to going to, oh my God, I have to go count pennies again. I'm losing my savings every month because I stopped getting paid. And holy fuck, like, it really shakes your confidence. So then I'm calling one of my good friends and he's like, hey, do you want to come partner with me in the CBD business I'm doing? I'm killing it. I did 12 million last year, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right. I'm like, how much time hustle is it? And he's like, well, I'm like, because I need something that's low on time where I can take my capital because I have credit at least. I'm a little low on money where, I had to eat through savings, because my daughter had endoscopies at $10,000 a pop and, she had some throat thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, I just got hit by a ton of shit all at once, like business tank, medical bills, like just all of a sudden everything just totally fucking flipped out. And yeah. And I was like, dude, I'm in a shitty position. And he gave me the opportunity. And I'm like, okay. He's like, all right, well, he's like, you're going to need $100,000 and, some other things to start this business. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, all right. I had to really sit down and like pick up my balls, and be like, dude, how afraid am I to lose everything that I have, but I'm like, dude, this is it. This is the net. So I got into that business and I started creaming it. Like we were killing it 5 months in, and then something happened to me. So I just recovered from just gotten out of the shit, because it's like, it's kind of like estimated taxes, you pay your estimates and, then you get to the end of the year and you're like, fuck, I made more money than I thought I did last year. We didn't count for it right now. I owe the government this big ass check and your new estimate just went through the roof. And then you got to pay another one in 2 months in June. And it's like, cool. I just wrote $80,000 check. Fuck, this is bullshit. I now have $2,000 in my account again. Fuck. It's like, it really comes and it blindsides you sometimes if you don't behave. So it's kind of like the same thing where like, I just gotten my shit back together after like a scenario like that, where like your cash flow just goes like this and you crawl back up and you're like, all right, I got money coming in. The business is solid. And then we hired this affiliate network to run traffic that we've been using forever. And they brought in a bad affiliate who sent a shitload of credit card fraud to all of our, all of our e-stores. And basically like, I paid this dude for like 1,000 customers worth of conversions on a CPA basis. And it rebilled at like 20% instead of like 70. So I literally lost like $60,000 in 24 hours. Like I was like, oh my God. And then the hard part is in that business is all the chargeback like stuff, because it's e-com and it's high risk because it's not like you're selling education. People want to buy shit. They want to try it. And then they conveniently don't want to fucking pay for it. Oh, I didn't get this. And you're like, here's a confirmation number for USPS. You signed it. It showed up at your door. I didn't get this. Fine. Fuck you. Chargeback. And you're like, you're committing consumer fraud, So there's all kinds of crazy shit like that people do in online commerce. It's like, and so I got all this fraud traffic. These weren't real customers. They were stolen credit cards. And it blew up my entire ability to take payment processing. So I lost $60,000 I now have like 100K worth of bills that I have to pay that are due next week because, you know, you run the traffic, it rebills in 17 days. And, you know, then you pay your bills and all this stuff, but you got to pay everybody else in advance. So I'm like, oh my God, I just flipped myself like 6 figures upside down in like 3 days. What the fuck am I going to do? I called my partner. I'm like, dude, oh my God. And he's like, don't worry. And I mean, at this point, I'm like so stressed out. I'm shaking because I literally just turned my shit around. So I'm already was rattled by that because again, when you get your first success, you know, you make your first million and you start paying yourself nice and you're doing well. And then all of a sudden that gets taken away from you. You're like, whoa, it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like the first time you get beat up on the playground. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, damn, that sucked. You know, so it's kind of like, I just kind of started coming back and then this happened. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I might lose my house. Like, and I'm sitting there looking at my wife and kids and I'm freaking out. And my wife's just like, oh my God, like just try to settle your debts. And, you know, I was like, holy shit, like talk about bad luck. Like, what the fuck? I can't believe it. Like, how did that happen? I finally turned it around. And then I start this other business as diversification, the hedge, and it almost wipes me out across the board. And I was just like, oh my God, how am I going to have to pay these people back? How am I going to have to do this? You know, I got all this money. I got 100 grand sitting on my Amex. It's due in 20 days. Yeah. Where am I going to get 100 grand from? Because literally the money that was supposed to come in, the guy scammed and left the fucking country. And so I can't even litigate and go find this asshole and handle him Russian style, you know, with a hammer. So holy shit. Like I was sitting there and at that moment in my life, I was like pissing myself. I was sitting there shaking for like a month and a half of anxiety. I called my partner, Mark. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are we going to do? He's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to move up our subscription dates. We're going to debit block the banks so they can't pull out all the shit and, you know, file all these chargebacks. And we're going to go. And we had this like crazy plan. He's an OG in that space. Like he knows how to handle everything that can happen. And I took like 2 months, but we turned it around. And then at the end of the year, I made $3 million in that business. And this year I'm already on track to make like 6. So it just goes to show you, that was last year, by the way, at this time. And then, oh, by the way, the best part of that string was the trifecta. This shit happened right as fucking COVID was hitting. So I had all my shit blown up and I still have some recurring transactions for customers that we built that we, you know, that are here and they're sticking with us. And I'm like, dude, they're going to close the fucking post office down. They just shut everything. I'm not even allowed to go to my fucking office legally. I mean, I still go. I don't care. I'll fucking sue them. But like, they are going to shut the post office down and we are going to be dead. And I had to make a decision. I was sitting there in like that moment of like, you know, I just got my ass kicked twice. And I was like, oh my God, COVID, no one's ever experienced. And I'm just like shaking from anxiety. And I had to make a decision. And my decision was to keep fucking going. So, you know, I'm glad we did because a lot of people got out that were competing with us. The shit opened back up and we fucking killed it that summer. We made a ton of money. So it was just like turned it all around and just totally 180 back in the other direction. So it's like a rubber band. You know what I mean? Just going through the emotions, like I said, of being on top of the fucking world to absolutely back in the gutter to crawling back and then just beat even farther back in the gutter and then bringing back to, oh my God, it really gives you an appreciation for when you are up because, you know, it's such a gift and you have to hold on to it. It's not like you just make it. You're like, all right, we hit 7 figures. We're done. Like, we're good. We can coast for the rest of it. No, you got to go to war every day. You know, you got to go to war every day. And if you're not growing, you're falling apart. You're dying. So that's how you do it. You just keep going.
Being an entrepreneur, man. Like, and you said it best. Like, you just got to go. I had 2018 was very similar for me too. I was making almost the same amount of money, walked into a thing, tried to get a good deal. It went sour overnight. I lost everything.
Jeez.
Got back up.
Well, you're here now, right?
That's right. That's right. Same shit. Sean, I think we have time for like one more question. Chantel.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I know earlier when you were talking about like getting over your fears and stuff like that, that you have to put yourself in that situation. But I also consider myself socially awkward. That
makes 2 of us.
I do. I isolated myself for a couple of years because I went through something and I just feel socially awkward. So how did you go from socially awkward to charismatic? Like, do you have any tips aside from just throwing yourself out there?
Yes. I mean, okay, I've been you, so I know what it's like and it's really difficult. So I totally feel and totally understand how difficult it feels to be in that situation. And for me, it was like flipping a light switch. Okay. I hit a certain moment in my life of rock bottom where, again, it was just like a bunch of stuff all happened at once. Like my great grandmother who lived with me for 10 years, she died. And, my first girlfriend, you know how it is when you're young and in love the first time. And, she broke up with me. And then like all this, like, I have my wisdom teeth pulled out. So I'm like laying in bed. I'm, like bleeding all over. I'm depressed. I'm like, my grandmother just died. You're really close to me. And just like, and then I got turned down by this record label that was my dream because of some bullshit reason. And I was just like, I just had my dream taken away from me. I lost somebody I care about. The girl of my dreams just fucking got rid of me. And then, and I'm sitting here in physical pain. And like, that was like a rock bottom for me because I was just sitting there and I was just like, the problems of like a 19-year-old versus, being older in life. I was just like, my whole life I've been making excuses for myself. And it was hard for me to hear. I've been sitting down and saying like, look, I'm socially awkward. I struggle with people. I don't understand people. People don't like me. And I decided right then and there, I'm like, I'm not going to fucking take this anymore. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to let other people tell me. So I decided to change. And it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life at that time. And I decided right then and there, I'm like, okay, so I need to learn how to talk to people. I'm going to go read some books on psychology, like what I win friends and influence people and, things like this. And then I'm going to study body language. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to start practicing this stuff. So, the first conversations I had, like I was terrified of approaching women when I was younger because I always got shot down. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go approach 20 women at this bar and get shot down 20 times. But it's not about being successful. It's about coming in and just being like, can I get over the fear, the anxiety that it cost me? Like, wow, I think she's pretty. I'm going to not go talk to her. I'm just going to look the other way. Like I had to force myself to get out of that. So to me, it's baby steps, right? It's like, you have to decide first that you want to change because your brain is simply just a set of reinforced patterns from earlier parts of your life. And you can rewire it. You just have to choose to rewire it. And you have to reinforce it and go through the habit to rewire your brain. So if you tell yourself like, I'm socially awkward every day, that's it. Like, okay, here we go. Korean War, the Chinese used the brainwashing technique of repetition, right? Like affirmations, as cheesy as they are. They would make American soldiers go in and say like, I don't like America. Just say it or we're going to torture you. All right, I'll say it. All right, just don't smack me, And then they'd say it. And after a couple of weeks and a few months, they could totally brainwash and change somebody's mindset. Because when you say a declarative statement out loud, and the louder you say it, the more excited you are about it, the more it transforms your psychology and it ejects like the neurons in your brain literally rewire themselves. So by telling yourself positive statements about yourself, like, look, I'm not so, never say socially awkward again. Just say, I'm charismatic. I'm learning to be charismatic. I believe I can be charismatic. Like I said, you choose, and then you start telling yourself and reinforcing it every day. And then you put it and will it into action. You sit down and you read some books like, okay, let's go read 5 books on charisma. All right, now let's go and practice it. All right, I'm going to go walk up to 3 people at the grocery store and start talking. I'm going to get on Instagram and I'm going to hit the live button. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm just going to put myself in that situation because I better figure it out because I got all these people that are like, hey, tell us something, So you just got to do baby steps. You know what I mean? And it's a process. It took me 10 years, maybe 15 to get good at it. And then it becomes ingrained in your brain and the neural network reforms. And then it becomes habit and it's just who you are. So for me, it was like I had to train it into myself. But like I said, the first step you have to do is you have to decide, in my opinion. And once you decide, then you have to start using the language of positivity and doing the affirmations and the declarations and start accepting and just you can do it, because if I can do it, you can do it. I'm telling you right now, if I can get out of where I was and I can get to here, you can definitely do it. So, I mean, we all have strength in us. One thing I've learned in my life is that if whatever expectation you set for yourself, if you work hard, you will far exceed anything that you thought was possible. The biggest mistake I think I made when I was 20 was not setting my goals high enough. My goal is to make $1 million a year. And I'm like, I don't think I'll ever do it. And I put it on a pedestal. The day that I smashed that, I was just like, okay, cool. This is awesome. I celebrated. Like it was so exciting for me. But then next year I did it again and then some. And then I made a couple. And last year I made 6. And I'm like, why not 10? Why not 50? Why can't I sell my company for 100? I'm going to fucking do this, Like the expectation you set in your head. If I could go back to when I was 20, I would never have guessed anything that I would have achieved. There's no way I could have even fathomed it. And the whole thing is it's just like, I just decided one day, I don't have to live like this. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I'm going to do everything in my power to change my life. And that's what you have to do, because that's what it takes. You got to be extreme about it. Like, it's like going to church on the weekend. You got to go religiously. You got to be there on time. Every day you're going to wake up and be like, I'm charismatic. Go read the book on it. Spend 30 minutes a day. All right, now I'm going to go practice those skills today. Okay, so I had 2 successes and 3 failures. What did I learn from those failures? This person definitely didn't like me at all. They were not nice to me. What did I say? Was it my body language? Was it my intonation? What was I not mirroring them enough? Was I too intense? Did I not listen? Did I not ask enough questions? Did I not, you know what I mean? And you practice and you experiment. Just like in marketing, we don't guess, right? We test. We don't just put out ads and say, hey, this one's going to smash it. We have no idea. We sit down and we're like, all right, we're going to run 20 ad sets and throw $10 into each. All right, 3, 4, and 12 are performing. Let's double down on those. All right, 12's the winner. Let's go throw $20,000 behind it and crush it. So it's the same thing. It's like, you've got to kind of like split test yourself as a human being. And it's like software upgrades. You got to improve it. And it's work. It's really hard work, but you can do it. Definitely do it.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I hope it helps.
You know about the RAS, reticular activating system in your brain?
No, tell me.
Okay. So the RAS, you guys, and this has to do with like, you believe in like the law of attraction and stuff?
To some degree, yeah.
Okay. So, but positive affirmation is relatable. So the reticular activating system think of it as the filter in your brain that filters what's in the front of your brain to your subconscious mind. So the things that are going through your mind and the things that you're saying about yourself are the things that get filtered into the back. So if you start doing positive affirmations, looking in the mirror, I'm a badass, I'm not socially awkward, and you do it over and over again, it retrains this filter to filter that into the back of your mind so that subconsciously you start to believe that and it will become a reality.
I love it. That is the scientific explanation for exactly what I was trying to say.
Thank you,
Joel.
Was
it called again?
Reticular activating system. How are you on time, Joel?
I'm good. I can keep going.
Okay,
we got one question.
Mr. Riley. He loves questions.
Thank you.
I love his questions.
Thank you, sir. So I know he's married. He mentioned he has 3 kids. I'm divorced. I have 3 kids. I know you're married. So my question is about how important is it to find the right partner that will support, like, what was the journey like for that? Like, because they have to be pretty special people to be married to someone who just like, those you lose everything and have to gain it, lose everything, gain it. Like, they have to be special spouses too. So, but I guess my question is like, how important is it to have them in your corner? And then like, how do you attract them? Like, how do you attract that right woman into your life?
Man, that's a good question. Because I'm, all right, I'll be brutally honest. So I don't know if I have the perfect person in my life, but at this point it costs me 50% if I change my mind. You know what I mean? So it's like, my wife is great, but we're polar opposites in a lot of things. She's also from a different country and culture. And there are things that are simple. And, a normal marriage is difficult, right? Really, really difficult. But then when you add cross-cultural stuff, like, well, there's just stuff where I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then she's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, what do you mean? Why do you guys do it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Of like, you can't just go into the school principal and say this and this and that. That's so aggressive. Like, you can't be so blunt in America. It's just like, so, the answer is, boy, relationships are tough. And like anything, you got to work at it. So I definitely have had periods in my life where I'm just like, I'm unhappy. Maybe I want to get divorced. So, you start, I don't want to say like, I never crossed the line, but I've definitely like put feelers out and hung out with people and talked to them enough. Or like, maybe, I'll make some friends or whatever. And am I nuts or am I, because sometimes, you're always looking for something more because your brain is wired to always want the opposite of what you have, which is crazy. Right. So, I remember I always had this thing in my head. I'm like, God, maybe it'd be awesome if I met an entrepreneur, somebody who's just fucking wired like me, who gets it, who's not going to fight me at every single time that I go out and do it. And then, I met this really awesome entrepreneur lady. She's a maniac, but I realized there was no way I could date the carbon copy of myself because, it's fun when you hang out at a couple of days at a marketing conference, but when you actually like, get to know each other a little bit, it's not even like you're hanging out. It's like a one-up competition. Like, I don't know, I just can't deal with somebody who's just like, oh, well, my friend over here, he just bought a Lamborghini, but he only bought a Kelly bought a Huracan. He's such a loser. And I'm just like, the fuck is wrong with this girl? You know, like, I'm like, hold on a second. Like, I'd be like, congratulations. I don't care.
That is not the mother of your child.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like the point is that I had a couple periods in my life where I questioned, and I kind of like I said, I never crossed any lines or did anything like, you know, that would get me in any sort of trouble, but I definitely, you know, got friendly with a few people and kind of realized that, like, you know, maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think what's most important is you find somebody that can put up with your shit and that's supportive and that's a kind person. I think that's the most important. And that, you know, if you got kids, somebody that's going to really take care of your kids, because I will tell you, as somebody who I battle a lot with my wife, because she's from Soviet Russia. Okay. So like the way that they do shit over there, like we think 9 to 5 first shift, the way the American mentality is, that's hard for a lot of people to break in this country. Now add communism to that. Okay. Yeah. Like she's kind of just like of this mentality that it's like, I don't know. Like I would sit down and watch sports, and then she would be like, why are you watching men kick balls on field when you could be making business and do real man and not be loser on couch? And I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, all right, you want to trigger the entrepreneur? I'm like, I'm going to work. And she's like, no, let's come spend time with me. I'm like, you can't do that to me. You can't come in and say I'm being a lazy ass because I'm watching the fucking playoffs. And then, you know, tell me I need to go to work and then be like, no, come spend, you know, like she, you know, so it's very difficult to be married to somebody that's like not entrepreneurial in terms of like that. Now, I will say she is driven and very success oriented, and that helps a lot. But
I like what he was saying, man. I want some more.
It's good to have, I believe, a strong woman that's supportive. If you want an entrepreneur, that's cool, but a strong, supportive woman behind you that understands.
All right. Sorry.
There we go. He's back.
I got wrecked by the internet. Okay. So my point was like, look, it's a struggle. And, one thing that really helped my marriage was she got into like, and the thing is, you can tell somebody for 10 years about it. Like, go do this. If they don't come to the conclusion themselves, just like closing and sales, you know, they have to, you know, you can't tell somebody to buy something. You have to convince them that they're convincing themselves. So there's an art to the psychology. She finally got into like self-help stuff, and it really helped like change her mentality. Cause then all of a sudden she's on the thing. She's just like, God, my brother's mentality is just so stupid. It's like, he's got this job and he's unhappy, but he doesn't want to take any risks and go start a business. And it's like, I keep telling him and he argues with me and I'm so mad. And I'm like smiling. I'm like, God, I've been saying this shit for like 15 years, woman. And every time you sit there and argue with me, like there's something wrong with me, and listen to it coming out of your mouth. So you know, the point is that helping them discover that sort of mentality that's in sort of like in sync with what you believe and who you are, I think can help. But at the same time, there is a lot of merit and value, I think, to having a partner in your life who's kind of the opposite of you, because they keep you grounded, you know, because I'm always like on. And then she's like, you're too intense. You got to calm down. You scare people, you know, you got to like relax. And it's the weekend. You need to turn off your phone. But I'm like, blah, 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 you know, so it helps keep me, you know, sometimes you need a short chain because it kind of helps keep you grounded and stuff like that. So I don't really have an answer, but I guess that's my experience, is that, you know, in my life, I don't know if I have the perfect person for it or not, but you know, every time I've kind of like questioned that and started loosely venturing out, I've came back because I realized the grass was not greener, and that, you know, certain things that I thought were going to go a certain way didn't end up going that way. And like, you know, it just, dude, it's hard. It really is. You just got to find somebody who's, like I said, who is going to put up with your shit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Like, I'm not actually looking for like an entrepreneur. I'm just saying as a wife, but just someone that is supportive. And that's hard, because if you're especially constantly grinding at first to try to get what you want, that I don't know, like a lot of people don't deal with that. And that's like, you know, you want someone that understands it, you know?
Yeah. And they're never going to understand it.
Yeah.
And that's really the hardest part. It's like, how do you explain to someone who doesn't get it that they need to get it because you're doing it? And again, I will say this, as the success and the money have come in, she's loosened up a lot more. Back in the day when I was like, oh, I'm going to try this new thing and I got this going on, she's like, show me the money. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to think 5-year time horizon, 10-year time horizon. Like, look at the potential of this. So what if I fail? And then now it's just like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And she's like, all right, cool. Because she knows that it's probably going to do something at some point. So it took 15 years to get there. But man, like anything, it's a struggle. It's like building a business.
Yeah.
But she's everything in the world. She stuck it out too. She stuck it out.
She did stuck, like anything, you got your ups and downs, and, you have your times where you lose $100,000 and you're like, holy shit, what do I do? And you lose everything, you got to rebuild. So, I had a point and I totally lost it. Something about, I forgot. I don't know. Something about, I had a good point. I thought that was important, but tip of my tongue.
No, that helps. That helps, man. Thank you.
All right. I got another question. Marvon.
Yo, speaking of 15 years learning something, I ironically am 15. I got into this about 8 months ago, and I've been into it heavily. It's only so much how far I can go because I am only 15. But earlier you're speaking a lot of like how, back then you were, ready just to be on tour, and how things were important to you that aren't important now, and you're ready to just sleep on the floor to be touring, and how you are now. And like, being in this, I've kind of just had like a real just thought for the last couple of weeks of just, getting into this. I'm 15, so I haven't really done much in my life and I haven't really gone no places. So my question for you, thank you. Yeah. My question for you is, like, if you were to go back to your younger self, that one who would want to just do everything and be inside and sleep on the floor to just see a band, would you change that, or would you not change that?
My wife asked me a question once. So when I was in a band, and at 27, I quit playing in a band because my career was literally taken for me. Like, my last show was on stage in front of 10,000 people. And we were on tour with some very famous bands back then, Papa Roach and Buck Cherry, playing arenas.
Nice.
And man, like, I remember coming back from that, and my wife's like, why are you fucking off making $200 a week, touring around the country, screwing around, when you could be making that in days, recording bands? And like, she had a real come to Jesus with me one day, because like my whole band imploded in like a week because some political shit with the agent and the label and this and that. And then 2009 happened, and like the market tanked, and like the, butt rock blew up, and no one was in a rock band anymore. And everybody wanted like dubstep and DJs, and like, it just, my whole life fell apart that I've been working for a decade at that point. And then I started producing and really focused on it, and just crushed. And like, it just went up logarithmically. And the weird thing is, she asked me about 5 years ago, kind of before I started building like a business empire. She said to me, no, not 5 years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, actually. God, sorry. I'm getting old. My memory is hazy. I'm going to get the cane out. So she said to me, she's like, don't you think you wasted all that time playing in a band, screwing around, touring, doing all that bullshit? Like, you didn't make any money. You wasted your life. You could have took that 10 years and you think about it, how much further ahead. And I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know what? You're wrong. I'm glad I went through those experiences, because if I hadn't gone through all of those experiences, which toughened me, I was able to use that information to then bring it to music producers to teach them, and pivot and use that information to become successful to what I am today. Like, if I didn't do that stuff, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now. It's like an accumulation of ladder. Like, that's what I kept talking about, like the knowledge, the experience, like the skills, is that when you learn and master a skill, do well with it, and you start doing something, like I said, you start network, you start making some money, and then maybe you learn something else because a new opportunity comes up, and you pivot, and then you do it. And all of a sudden you're sitting back with a basket of skills. So like, when you go to a conference, like say ClickFunnels, and you're sitting down, right? And like, I collect watches. So I'm chilling on the bridge at the last ClickFunnels event. And all of a sudden I see like an AP, like you think about your rap music, like going to the jeweler, bust an AP, you know what I mean? Like, your guy's got like a $40,000 watch in his arm. And I look up, I'm like, what do you do, bro? And, like, I'm like, I got to talk to this guy. And I'm talking to this guy who runs this big trading company and shit like that. And we kind of like start talking and stuff. And, I'm talking about music. He's talking about this and that. And the point is like, we came together because I had so many different skills that I had accumulated by building my business. And the conversation started over a watch, but it ended up us working together on some things because, I had all these different skills I had built up over my life and mastered. And it was like, dude, I need a guy that can do a webinar better because we're a French company and we suck in English. I'm like, dude, I'm the master of closing a webinar. Let me come fuck your shit up. Like, let's go. Get me on that webinar right now. Kill it. So, you know what I mean? It was like we were able to take our skills and we were to put them together to do something for the betterment of both of us. So you will find opportunities. It's like, okay, so when I got into, remember I was talking about the thing when I was overseas and I started that business doing CBD. I met that dude in a line at a taco truck at ClickFunnels. And, you know, I dress pretty eccentrically when I'm out. Like I wear like pimp suits and white suits and shit like that. And like, you know, fucking Viper loafers and like just ridiculous shit. Cause I love it. I'm a musician, so I can be eccentric. I get away with it. Yeah, dude, like, you know, you might as well dress like a fucking Italian. And again, everybody's dressed the same at an event like that. So I'm like, dude, I'm going to walk around like, you know, I'm gonna dress up a little bit, stand up, bumping. So this dude in front of me, he's wearing like $10,000 in designer, man. He's got Gucci shoes and Louis Vuitton pants and like, you know, he's balling out way harder than anybody else in line. I'm like, bro, what do you fucking do? And he's like, he's got purple hair. And he's like, yeah, man, I sell cocktails and CBD. I'm like, what? That's crazy. And I'm like, well, you look like you're in a band. He's like, how did you know? I'm like a music producer. He's like, dude, I've seen you on the internet. I'm like, yeah. And we just started talking. We kind of like became friends. And I'm just saying, like, at that point, I was like, well, why don't I take my network and why don't you take yours? Why don't we put them together? And we kind of started a business together. And, you know, it was then we pivoted, you know, a year later, like I said, when I told you the story when I switched when I was in Russia. So we had started a business together and we kind of like, you know, the point is like you build the skills and you get all these different skills together. And then you can take them and then you go out and network because you actually have something of value to offer. It's like I can go start any kind of business because I know how to do all of the core things and I've got experience doing them. And then it's just an issue of like, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to work with? Who do I like? Who's cool? And you go to places, you run up into people, you make friends and you go do it. So yeah, a long-winded answer. I think I would do it all exactly the same again. If I had to give myself advice at the age of 16, and by the way, bravo, man, for like being so young and just
15.
Yeah, 15. Jesus Christ. Like at 15, I was like sitting at a lunch table with my head down, listening to death metal, not talking to anybody. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't trying to build a business. I didn't even know.
I was in lockdown boarding school, the Blue Mohawk.
I like you already.
Yes, sir. I'm telling you, we're late. We're late. I want to stay.
I love it.
Like 5 minutes after this. Is that cool?
Hey, of course.
Awesome.
So like, holy shit. Like, I just think it's so awesome that you're at that age with that. Just this, I mean, I can just see it. By the time you're my age, you're going to be like, you know, like $100 million in the bank. You look me up and message me and tell me you hit it. And then I'm like, all right, you're buying lunch. Lunch is on you and maybe the jet flight. But, you know, if I could go back and be you, I would tell myself, focus on skills, get the knowledge, get the skills, the experience, build that up first, and then go try to meet people. Find skills that are worth shit. You know, like for example, getting good at copywriting, very important. Getting good at persuasion, closing, sales, learning how to like, you know, manage and stuff like that. Like taking the time to learn those skills that nobody else wants to. I mean, that's what makes a person a killer. Because if you know how to do that stuff, you can walk into any business or any situation and meet any cool person over whatever reason at a conference or on a plane or whatever. And then it's like, you got some shit to talk about and then you can work together and you can do cooler shit than any of you would do on your own.
I love that. Oh, I got one more question and then we're gonna end this guy. Catherine Stewart.
Hey, so I'm looking at band stuff on my computer, and 1998, 1999 is where I'm roughly thinking you were having a jam session with Papa Roach and Buck Cherry.
2009. 2008. It was the crazy. Recent. Yes, it was the Crazy Bitch tour. Excuse my language. That was the song that was.
We're all adults here.
Yes.
What's your name of your band? Would I know any of your songs?
Oh, the band. You know, we were from Milwaukee, so we toured. The band is if you go on Spotify, it's Silver Gun, one word, SILVERGUN. Just look for like a blonde haired dude with a bunch of tattoos and you'll see me standing there with my guitar. I mean, we kind of started blowing up. We were about to ink a deal and got signed, but we were doing some touring because we were on the same agency. So like stuff was really starting to take off.
Yeah. I was just like, what? Like as soon as you said those, I was like, dang, what?
Yeah. Papa Roach is still going. They just dropped a new single, I think like a few weeks ago. So my buddy, he did it. Colin Britton is his name.
Heck yeah, man. Where can these guys find you? Where can they connect with you on social?
Yeah, just hit me on Instagram. I mean, I don't do Facebook so much. I drop a lot of stuff on my IG stories. Like I've been doing a lot of financial stuff, with not financial advice, but I've been, because it's like, dude, when you have money, what you find going to different advisors, and I've been to like 13 of them, is that like a lot of these guys are idiots and they're triggered by incentive cause bias. And it's like whatever they believe in and whatever they're selling is what is better than everything else. And you got to sort through the bullshit because you want to like do it. So I've been like trying to help my audience sort a lot of that stuff and giving them stuff that they're not thinking about. Just because, again, they don't teach us stuff in school. So, okay. So my Instagram is at Joel, Joel Wanasek, Wanasek, at Joel Wanasek on Instagram.
Simple. First and last name.
I keep it easy.
Heck yeah, man. All right, guys, let's give this guy a wonderful round of applause. Joel, thank you so much. If you want to stay on here real quick so I can talk to you for like 5 minutes, that'd be awesome.
Of course.
Guys, let's bail out of here. I got the recording. I'll send it to you. If you enjoyed this,
Yes.
message and tell him how awesome he is.
Guys, what up? It's your boy Mike Barron. Thank you for checking out the YouTube channel. Truly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you forget, I'm going to come through this computer right now and I'm going to close you my damn self. Let's go. I'll see you at the top, y'all.